Haha! Hello, 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 and good evening, one and all. And might I say, beware all who enter here, for beyond this point, we are about to experience easily, easily, easily the most dumbest of the dumb. There is a reason, a huge reason, why people like Jimmy Dore were referred to by people like Michael Brooks as the dumb, dumb left. Now, I can say, I warn you, this is going to get dumb. This is going to get dumb really quickly, really fast. Now, for those of you who managed to watch last week, last Wednesday, when we were covering Galloway live, you know what Galloway is. You know his game plan. He's a grifter. And yes, Galloway got massive props back in the day, and quite rightly so, for opposing the Iraq War. But congratulations, there were a lot of other people opposing the Iraq War who aren't now very viciously anti. They're not, shall we say, viciously pro-Putin as George Galloway is. And again, as we showed last week, and you were about to see this all over again. And I did say last week, I'm pretty sure I said last week, that the worst possible thing that could ever happen was that if George Galloway and Jimmy Dore were to somehow combine together. And unfortunately, this is what has happened. And this is what we're going to be covering today. If you've never seen George Galloway before, don't worry, we'll give you a brief intro to who he is, and then we're going to have to give you a very, very brief intro to Jimmy Dore, because trust me, there's a lot to say about Jimmy Dore, but he is in no way, shape, or form a friend to leftist causes. Certainly not in America, and certainly not here in the UK. In fact, George Galloway could probably learn, unfortunately, a lot from Jimmy Dore by following some of his antics. And unfortunately, George Galloway has indeed followed some of those crazy antics by creating his own political party, the Workers' Party. But hey, there you go. So, before we do go jumping into this, and like I say, brace yourselves, people, strap yourselves in, and make sure your loved ones are held close. For tonight, it's going to get incredibly, incredibly dumb from the people who are going to be watching this interview. There are going to be some incredibly, incredibly dumb takes. But anyway, let's see who we've got in chat tonight. Colin Thompson, greetings from New York. Well, greeting to you, Colin. Esty White, good evening to you. Adam Bully, hello to you. Eddie the Intellect, what's up to you. Cathal OG, good evening to you. Henk, good evening to you. Greetings from the Netherlands. PE, good evening to you. Eddie is already dressed for the Cold War. Very true. Very true indeed is. Haji on a one. First time watching him last week and it was awful. Yes, I agree. It was awful last week. And by the way, we did try and phone into his show last week. Part of me is really tempted to try and do it again this week, but to be honest, this is it. this is the peak. This is the peak of pure and unadulterated, the concentrate. Imagine getting an orange and then squeezing it and then getting a really strange juice. This is what you get when you get George Galloway and Jimmy Dore together. You get a really terrible tasting juice. Planetary Citizen, hello to you. Daily Blaze, good hello to you. And of course, the Finkel Punky. Hi, hello to you there. So, strap yourselves in, ladies and gentlemen. But first of all, a quick rundown of who we're going to go over tonight. So, first of all, you can see on the screen here, this is George Galloway. If you didn't see him last week, I'm sorry that this is your first introduction to who George Galloway is. But anyway, George Galloway, former Labour MP, got booted out of the Labour Party very, very unceremoniously, and well, quite rightly so. He got massive props back in the day for being one of certainly the loudest voices, of course, of the anti-war protesters about Iraq, which was fine. I don't have any problems with him for saying that. Turns out this week I found out that he might have been a Ba'athist apologist. If that is true, well, and of course, lots of allegations about Galloway, lots of them, and I must stress, allegations of him using the food for oil and maybe even profiting from that. And let's just say, while there was no evidence to support that, the House of Commons committee didn't really clean him, or should we say clear him of that either, especially with their comments about that. But like I say, let me just say those were allegations. Nothing ever came of them. Galloway says that he's innocent, but there were sure a lot of allegations. Take of that what you will. The other fact that we've also got to come into this is that Galloway, certainly during his time as an MP, was one of the most highest paid of people to appear on RT. And we knew that because obviously as an MP, you have to declare your earnings. And he certainly made a lot of money appearing on RT. And I probably highly suspect he still does make a lot of money appearing on RT today. So, who's next? Well, Jimmy Dore. And quite rightly, at the top of the comments from a guy called Chris 473368, I agree. I do not normally cover Jimmy Dore, purely for the fact that, well, Jimmy Dore mostly is an American commentator. He does things for an America point of view, and that's fine. You know, he's over there, I'm over here. It's all, you know, well and good. It's all fine and dandy. But of course, Jimmy Dore, if you ever really want to know just how bad Jimmy Dore is, I believe it was either Sam Cedar or it might have been Michael Brooks, but I remember seeing the video on the Majority Report channel. In fact, they may have both done videos about how bad Jimmy Dore is. But I think it might have been Sam Cedar, did about a 30-minute video about why Jimmy Dore was so bad for the thing that brought him, shall we say, big, massive props for something called Force the Vote. And essentially, Force the Vote, from how I may remember it, so people will probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But essentially, with the new, shall we say, 6 progressives that entered Congress during the Trump era, or just so at the end of the Trump era, people like AOC, can't remember the rest of the names now. I knew them. I'd purposely learnt them before I came on, and I've forgotten them completely now. But AOC is the main one. And Jimmy's play to them was that essentially they should force a vote on Medicare and essentially try and stop all the stuff that the Democrats are doing, basically to try and get this vote through. Now, if you look at the way Congress, the Senate Congress, I'm going to get those mixed up continuously throughout the videos, so I apologize now. Like I say, I'm not a too big an American watcher, shall we say? So, forgive me if I get these things wrong. But they are very, very much would have never have worked. This vote to try and get Medicare for all of this, this progressive stuff wanted. Now, again, while I am, if I was an American, would definitely want those types of things like Medicare for all, etc., etc. The idea what Jimmy Dore was pushing would have never have worked. In fact, it would have pretty much spelt the end of all 6 of these people going into Congress. And like I say, Sam Cedar has an absolutely, like I say, it's a 30-minute video as to why Jimmy Dore's so wrong and bad for the left. In fact, Jimmy Dore said that Trump would that you shouldn't, at the time, you should rather vote for Trump than Hillary Clinton, because if Trump gets in, it'll somehow be better. And of course, at the time, you had to remember about the Supreme Court picks. Remember, Trump ended up picking 3 Supreme. Was it 3 he picked? Was it 3 or 2? I can't remember at the end of the day. But essentially, guaranteeing that for quite some time in America, the Supreme Court, one of the highest, certainly, big institutions over in like the American political system, is pretty much going to be in the hands of the Republicans for some time to come. Because if you don't know, these judges, when they get picked, they're lifetime appointments. And one of them, in fact, I think it was the most recent one, the woman he picked, I can't remember her name now. Like I say, sorry, but like I say, I keep an eye on America, but not too closely. Like I say, the woman that he picked is in her like mid-40s, and normally these judges are like in their 60s. So she is going to be on that panel for some time. In fact, most of them, his 2 picks, are quite young. So these people are going to be on the Supreme Court for some time to come. Almost certainly for some time to come. And Jimmy Dore said that wasn't a problem, that would never happen, that there was more chance of the moon falling into Lake Michigan. So now you know the level of the people that we're dealing with. Now you know the level of people that we're dealing with. So I hope that's given you at least a good primer into who these people are, and like I say, what we're going to be getting into in this video. But needless to say, I fully apologize. I fully apologize for what you are about to see. Like I say, this is hugely dumb, but get ready for it. The Funkle Pickle. The Feckle. Yes, yes, this guy. Galloway agrees with the denazification of Ukraine, yet ignores the fact that Putin has a following amongst the far right. Again, yes, completely true on that. Not to mention that Galloway himself associates with the far right. Number 3. I can't stand George Galloway, but Jimmy Dore has produced. Jimmy Dore has produced some useful videos. I would still watch RT again via YouTube if given the chance, simply because they cover stories that the SNN doesn't cover. Again, I'd be very, very, very be careful and opposed to that. Like I say, RT is very, very much Russian propaganda. Very, very much Russian propaganda. Yeah, they are. And if you want to watch how insane this well, it's more for entertainment purposes, but you probably wouldn't learn anything from it. Is the debate between Dylan Burns, Destiny, Haz, and Jackson Hinkle, I think it was, on modern day debates. Ooh. Yeah. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah. So it's good that there's some people know who Jimmy Dore is, and at least are very well aware on about how bad Jimmy Dore is on this. In fact, let me look, see if I can't find this video for you to all. No, we'll do it later. We'll find it later. So there we go. We'll go with this. So get ready. Get ready. Get ready for this.
Is the YouTube sensation, the one and only Jimmy Dore. Jimmy, welcome to the mother of all talk shows. Wonderful to see two hatted men on the screen. You and I are about the last men standing. They seem to be shooting everyone else down. What do you account for our success?
So, of course, this is talking about the quote-unquote censorship that has been going on. Really, there's been no censorship at all. Remember, Jimmy Dore hosts one of, if not the biggest shows on YouTube. He isn't being censored. He isn't being censored at all. He's been nowhere near close to being censored. George Galloway, this video has over 87,000 views. And George Galloway has a total subscriber count of 147k. Okay? Galloway and Jimmy Dore are in no way being cancelled, being silenced, or any such sort of thing. It is just something that they like to talk about. And remember, this playbook isn't new. This whole idea of we're the only ones who have got the correct information, we're the only ones you can trust, we're not like them in the mainstream media, whoever they or them are, this harkens back to the very, very techniques that Alex Jones has been pioneering for years. It's exactly the same type of thing. So, yeah, you know at least when you're stealing techniques from Alex Jones, well, you're in bad about that.
Well, first of all, I just got to tell you, it is exhausting doing this better than you. It really takes it out of me. And I'm going to go back to not doing it as good as you. So then you can be the best one. So, because you know how hard that is. So anyway, they can take me out whenever they feel like it, I guess, because I've had threats. YouTube has already had meetings with me and stuff like that. And so they've just announced, YouTube just announced the other day that if you trivialize the war, that they can use that to take your channel down. So the point is they can take you down whenever they feel like it. We know that now. And so
no, they can't take you down whenever they quote unquote feel like it. YouTube has what we call TOS, or terms of service. If you follow the terms of service, you will be fine. Should you break the terms of service, that is when YouTube will step in and, gives you strikes to your channels, warnings, etc., etc. We know how all that goes. But Jimmy Dore and Galloway here, they haven't been silenced. They haven't been kowtowed in any way, shape, or form. They've got massive audiences. How are these people being silenced? This would be like me saying, well, there's 43 people watching from what I can see at the moment. I'm being silenced. I'm being absolutely silenced. You know, it would be like, that's it. It would be like me claiming that Max is silencing me from not going on the Sunday brunch because I was on the first one, but I haven't been invited back. So clearly, Max is trying to silence me. Again, the argument doesn't make sense. The argument doesn't make sense from a very simple standpoint. It's Max's show. You know, he's the one who runs it, who organizes it, who does all the stuff. It's his job to invite all the people. He can invite whoever he wants. It's his show. Now, I've been on it once. I probably suspect I will probably be on it again. I don't know when, but I will probably be on it again at some point. Like I say, it was fun and I did enjoy myself on it. But these people, like I say, are in no way banned in any way, shape, or form. They have hundreds of thousands of views on their videos, on their channels. They've got hundreds of thousands of people subscribed to their Patreon. Galloway is on iTunes. He's on iTunes. You know? Oh, and remember, these are private companies, and to some extent, if you get kicked off their platform or they don't want you on their platform, they have the entire right to do so. It's their platform. They own it. Like it or not, to be on this platform, you've got to follow. You've got to follow the TOS on anything from YouTube to Twitter to Facebook. All these things have TOS. You look at the sites that have been created in competition to things like Facebook, YouTube, and etc. And very, very quickly, very, very, very quickly, these websites have descended into to a complete nightmare landscape where no one wants to go on them because there's constant trolling. There's every single type of phobia on display. No one wants to go from them. It scares people off. It scares advertisers off. And at the end of the day, if you want something like YouTube or anything like that, you have to have a term of service. You've got to attract the advertisers. And advertisers, I'll tell you now, coming from a marketing background, working in that area, they are very, very skittish about who they advertise and who they show their stuff with. So this whole argument of censorship doesn't pass muster whatsoever.
So if you were wondering how they would have censored people during the WMD's Iraq war period, this is how they would do it. They would say, you can't trivialize something. And so they're saying, so I'm a comedian by trade. That's what I've done for the last 25 years. And so I trivialize everything with jokes. That's what they could say. So at any point, they can take you down from. So why they haven't, I don't know. But the good thing is I don't need.
Yeah, why haven't they taken you down yet? If you are so influential, because that's the hilarious thing that these guys will say. Look at us, me and you, George. We're so big, we're so influential, but oh my God, we're being censored. and they could take us down at any moment. Why haven't they taken you down yet, Jimmy? Why haven't they taken you down yet?
Need someone to give me a job. So I'm not looking for a job, right? And I didn't come up through the news business or the corporate world. I came in through the nightclubs doing stand-up comedy. And so I'm not looking to make friends in this space in journalism or news reporting. And so it frees me up.
But if you know anything about Jimmy Dore, a couple of was it December? No, it was January. It was December or January. Jimmy Dore recently got caught out for essentially altering an article so it suited his purposes. This guy who says he's a comedian will change hats to use their behatted metaphors that they've been using whenever it suits him. Jimmy Dore will be a comedian when he gets criticized, saying, I'm not a journalist, I'm a comedian. But he will go on his show and quite happily say, I'm a journalist. And then the second he has any pushback from anything he says, oh, I'm just a comedian. What are you getting at me for? So that's the trick. That's the play that Jimmy Dore has. Whenever he gets in trouble, he's suddenly a comedian, and you shouldn't take him seriously. So ignore all this. Yeah, you're right. You're exactly 100% right. The victimhood oozing off this video is unbelievable. But that's their play. That's their angle from this. This is what every single right-wing hack grifter does on the internet. They all do this. They all play this game of, oh, we're being censored. Oh, woe is me. But they're not. They have audiences numbering into like hundreds of thousands of viewers. They get, thousands more views than, certainly I do or anyone else does. So certainly they are not being censored in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, that is very true. That's very true. Completely sweeping his time at TYT under the rug. Very, very true, Pretty Bird. I wonder if he'll mention that later. That would be very surprising if that decides to come up.
To be better than them in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm barely even trying.
Well, if that's what you achieve through barely even trying, it's their problem if you really get into your stride, because you have specialized in lampooning the pompous and the hypocrites, the warmongers, the merchants of war, the masters of war, to use Bob Dylan's phrase. But they're ruling the world, at least for the minute. I personally think their days are numbered. That much doesn't surprise me, Jimmy. But what's...
Okay. Yeah. Dore has over 1 million subs. Yeah, Dore has over 1 million subs, and yet he's being censored. Oh, woe is him. Woe is him for having over 1 million subs. I'd love to have over 1 million subs. I honestly doubt I will ever be in a position where I have 1 million subs. Because I'm quite happy with my channel. I'm quite happy with the growth that I've achieved. If I stay at this level, then so be it. You know what? It's extra money. It's extra money coming in to essentially to give to old GW. You people help me fund my Warhammer and Warhammer 40k habit. Thank you very much. You helped me fund that habit. So, please do help me fund it more, and my D&D habit for buying books. And like I say, you also help me improve the channel as well. Like I say, I can't show you, but you guys have helped me buy kit. So I can't show you the new camera, but I've got a new camera. I've got a new light. I haven't got it turned on at the moment because it's just too bright for this at the moment. We're fine already with this type of light I've got on. But you guys have helped me do that, and thank you very much to the people that have done that. By the way, if you would like to help support the channel, get my own bit of grift in, please do remember to hit that like and share button. Like I say, that does really help out massively. If you would again like to support the channel financially, there is the link down below to my Patreon page and the one off today's link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee, and of course the YouTube memberships are open as well. So that's my that's my bit of grifting done for today. But at least I'm honest. I'm honest about it, So let's continue with this and what they have to say about this, because the warmongers and lampooning, and bear in mind, I've never seen any of Jimmy Dore's comedy. I only really know Jimmy Dore from, again, his time when he was on TYT. And when I've often seen him bits and pieces when he, like I say, when he's ever come up on the Majority Report. But anyway, we'll continue to see what else go on here.
What surprises me is how the Liberals have gone full turtle. They are now amongst the most belligerent voices to be found anywhere. And they, of course, control big tech. They're all liberals in big tech. And they've turned out to be tyrants more than any right-wing tyrant we ever knew in the past.
So, big tech, let me just get this straight. Big tech is run by the liberals, who have somehow turned out to be more tyrannical than the tyrants. Now, you may remember, just a few moments ago, Galloway and Jimmy Dore were both saying we could be taken out at any moment. We could be anyone. We could be taken out like that. We could have been taken out like that, done and dusted. Except they haven't been. They've got, as someone just said here, Jimmy Dore has over 1 million subscribers. George Galloway's numbers into the hundreds of thousands. They're not exactly being silenced at all. As we said, it's just a very, very good grifting tactic. And now, of course, apparently these people, again, they're accusing big tech of being tyrants. Well, if you want an example of tyranny, look what happened just this week on Russian TV. A person who worked for a Russian TV station interrupted the broadcast, saying with a sign saying "Stop the war." They've been put in prison for, originally it was going to be 10 years, but I think it got shortened down to 10 days, which she got off very lucky with. We've seen that protesters are being prosecuted, arrested, beaten up in jails. And it's not just adults, they're arresting kids as well. So this isn't, the idea that big tech is the tyrants here. What tyranny? what tyranny are you referring to, George? Can you point me to any examples? Because I'm sure it's someone got banned, or and I guarantee you there will be a TOS reason behind it. There always is a TOS reason behind it. There always is. But we'll have to see what, should we say, excuses Jimmy Dore could come up with here.
So, I mean, the way you keep control is you control the narrative. And how do you control the narrative? You do censorship. And how do you sell censorship? You say it's for the people's own protection. It's.
I'd just like to point out, you probably have access to more news than anyone ever in previous history because of social media, things like Twitter, YouTube, etc. You name it. There are so many news sites out there. Like, you've got your big ones, like, your main newspapers. There are strictly online ones that exist. There's independent blogs. There's so much out there in terms of news. You are in no way, you only have to go out there and search for it. And unfortunately, a lot of people can. This is what leads a lot of people down the road of conspiracy theories. But, you are not, shall we say, starved of news. And even recently as well, because of Putin's been cracking down on like all these independent news stuff. The fact the last two independent news outlets, again, a clear example of tyranny, George. Don't see you talking about that. Taken out. A lot of people in Russia have been turning to VPNs. And by the way, if I was sponsored by a VPN, what a lead into an ad! What a lead into a VPN ad that would be. So you've got, they've got now so much freedom with VPNs that they can bypass all these stuff. It's not exactly hard to do. Not exactly hard to do to do this stuff or to find out about it. So again, it's not like people are starved from news.
It's the oldest trick in the book. Every tyrant does the same thing. And so, who are you not allowed to criticize is the people who rule you. I don't know, some smart person said that. And so who aren't you allowed to? And so now they get to decide what's true, what's not. And look at all the things just around the coronavirus.
Oh, dear. So the majority report looked into Jimmy Dore's metrics some time ago, and they found out that Jimmy Dore was doing okay. But the second Jimmy Dore starts doing videos questioning, and if you saw my video about Russell Brand today, you know what I'm on about, when he's just questioning the narrative. I'm just asking questions. I'm just a guy here just asking questions about the vaccine, about the virus, etc., etc. I'm just asking questions. That's what Jimmy Dore does. And it's no different from what Alex Jones does, to what David Icke does. You name any conspiracy. In fact, you may remember a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago now, when we had our UFO conspiracy theorist friend on. You remember what a lot of his excuses were. I'm just asking questions. And that's the big excuse a lot of these guys use. I'm just asking questions. The problem is, there are answers to those questions, but those types of people, because the answers they get don't suit with their worldview, they then can't accept the answers or adjust to their information. You know, you ask the question of, well, 2 + 2 is 4. The problem is they don't like the answer that it's 4. They want it to be 5, or they want it to be 3 because it suits their needs. Jimmy Dore is exactly the same, like Alex Jones, David Icke, any other conspiracy theorist who is just asking questions.
That turned out to be false. That you weren't allowed to question. You weren't allowed to question if the virus came from a lab. You weren't allowed to question if the masks were.
No, you were allowed to do that. You were entirely allowed to do that. But the problem was, there was no evidence that it came from a lab. There was still no evidence that it's come from a lab.
Worked or didn't work. You weren't allowed to do all these things.
And I love it. Jimmy Dore's just said, "Oh, you weren't allowed to question if masks did or didn't work." There are now peer-reviewed studies covering of the fact that masks work. And again, I'm not going to go into that. I'm not going to touch that with a barge pole, because again, that's science. Overall, not my remit. But when you've got scientific papers saying, yeah, mask wearing did work, and we know full well that for years mask wearing was a public health benefit that happened, that we did because we knew it worked. And then to go, well, don't know if it works or not, because Jimmy Dore, as we said earlier, when the Majority Report looked at his analytics, found that when Jimmy started questioning the narrative, all of a sudden he gets a massive bump, because he gets those conspiracy people. He gets that right-wing stuff. That's a very good question, actually. Yeah. Hi to Big Man Studios here. Do you think Jimmy is vaxxed? I have no idea. I don't know if he's actually ever said whether he's vaxxed or not. I genuinely don't know. I think he might be. I'm sure he might have said that he's been vaxxed. But I don't know. Could be lying for all we know. Could be lying.
And that turned out you weren't allowed to. So Fauci lies about herd immunity. They lied about ivermectin.
Fauci did not lie about herd immunity. Ivermectin, you really shouldn't be taking that as something for the coronavirus. You should not be taking that at all. But hey, like I say, there are other science channels. There are other science channels who have done that, who have shown, yeah, this is why you shouldn't be taking ivermectin.
They made it seem like it was a horse poison. It turns out to be one of, a Nobel Prize winning medicine. And once you find that out, and then you start looking, you find out they're lying about everything. And so, again.
No, they weren't. Again, oh my God, they were lying about everything. Just look at how he's phrased that. Just look at how he's phrased that answer that he's giving. They lied about this. They lied about masks. They lied about ivermectin. And then when you start looking, you find they lied about everything. Well, hold on a minute, Jimmy. Hold on. Hold on. What's true then? Because you're just a comedian. The people that we should be trusting during this time are virologists and doctors. And overwhelmingly, while they, quote, haven't got everything right, again, this is the big thing. When, COVID first happened, we were still learning so much about the virus. We didn't know so many things about it. So the information changed as we got to know more things about it. That's how science works. If you've ever argued with an evolutionist, this is their exact same tack that they take. they always say, when I was young, this is what they taught us in science. But that was 30, maybe 40 years ago. Science adapts, science changes, science evolves with evidence. So, and you are right, yeah. I'm glad you caught that as well. Yeah, Nobel Prize winning for what? Horses or people? I would not be surprised if you could look that up online and find out if that was true or not. Even if it did or didn't, I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't win a Nobel Prize. I wouldn't be very surprised if it didn't win one or not.
Again, we're not a democracy in the United States. So the idea that we're
You heard it first from Jimmy Dore. The United States is not a democracy. The United States is not a democracy. Oh. The United States is not a democracy, according to Jimmy Dore. Make of that what you will. Yeah, you are right, yeah. I find it weird for a left-wing like Galloway to be a Brexiteer, unless he sold his soul for a few thousand quid. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. Well, he's essentially right there. Broke clock right twice a day. They just had an election in 2012, in 2020. You know, of course, you can say that there are problems around how the elections work or whatever, but America is functionally still a democracy, like it or not. People like Jimmy Dore like to attract people who have lost faith in democracy. Because the second you see this all the time. If you can even see it here in this country, people who have lost faith in democracy. Why should I bother voting? The local elections are coming up very recently, as a prime example. Did you know, probably if you live in a town or city in the UK, roughly about 30% of the people in your town or city vote in your local election? Now, that's not a lot of people. 30% of people is not a lot of people. It's not a lot at all. And this has happened, you have seen people in the past with organized campaigns, especially the Greens. This is where the Green Party in the UK has done really, really well. They organize, they campaign, and they are in so many local councils throughout the UK because they get out there, they do the legwork, they get people out to vote, and they know full well that only about 30% of the people in the town actually vote. So that's a very small number of people you have to convince in a local area, in a local borough, to be able to turn their votes over to you. So what's this news in from Pretty Bird? So it did win a Nobel Prize, but yeah, not for COVID. So the Green Party go out in the UK and do fantastic work and get people mobilized, and as a result, they've booted out like Conservatives, Labour councillors, Lib Dem councillors. So it can work. You've just got to put the legwork in. And a lot of people are not prepared to put the legwork in for democracy. As far as they're concerned, democracy just happens once every 4 years, and they may or may not turn up to go and vote. Some will. But as far as they're concerned, that's democracy. That's not. You're in a democracy, as we've said before, 365 days of the year, every year. There are loads of chances for you to get involved in a democracy. I've said before, I'm a member of the Labour Party. I get involved with my local Labour Party. I get involved in what they're doing. I've gotten involved very recently with the campaign for the mayoral election of South Yorkshire, because the guy is an open socialist running for the mayor of South Yorkshire. I think what he wants to do for South Yorkshire is very good, hence why I've been backing him. You know, it goes on and on and on. But unless you are prepared to really get out there, do the legwork, get involved with campaigns, a lot of people just ignore that and just go, what's the point of voting? Or, well, I'm not going to bother voting in my local elections because I don't think it's worth it. So, again, as I always say, get involved. Get involved with politics. Go join a political party. I'm a member of the Labour Party. If you want to join Labour, great. If you want to go join the Conservatives, fine. Crack on. I don't care. Just go join a local party. Heck, why not even start your own? You know, as I said before, 30% of your people probably vote. That's the average of people that vote for local elections. You could probably start, you know, have your own independent party. Run by yourself. Run as an independent. You know, that happened very recently in Barnsley. We had an independent campaign run around the fact that there was this terrible, awful, it wasn't, roadworks happening up near Kingston. It was absolutely awful. It was terrible. So he was going to join the council and he was going to make them listen to what he had to say. And he effectively failed because, again, didn't really understand how, again, the council works or policy, or the fact that, you know, it was far too late. The planning application had already been in. It was already happening and being done. Again, that's how democracy works sometimes. But you've got to learn about these things. You've got to learn how to do it. It doesn't take a lot to do. It really doesn't. But, you know, and you will probably find in your own town there are independents. So, yeah, do go on and, you know, get that done. Tobias Brewer, are you a socialist? I don't really know. I tend to oscillate between being like a socialist versus a sock dem. I tend to find myself going back and forth between these two positions. I'm definitely very, very socialist when it comes to economic policies. I think a lot of the socialist policies get, shall we say, people more involved in the economy, and when you get that happening, then that's when a lot of the wealth definitely gets freed up to flow through more of the economy more effectively. I am a massive advocate for joining unions, so go and join a union. You know, yeah. You can even help improve democracy by paying for good journalism or joining a union. Very true, by the way. Go support your local newspaper. Lots of people throughout all local areas. Your local newspaper probably is very closely on its knees and needs a lot of help. You may even find that you no longer have a local newspaper, which is a sad day for, I think, a lot of people when you lose that local newspaper. So go support your local paper. So in Barnsley, we've got obviously the Barnsley Chronicle, and then we've got a regional newspaper, the Yorkshire Post. So again, if you're in those areas or in Yorkshire, go support the Yorkshire Post. You know, support your local newspaper. It helps so much again, in improving your local journalism, because your local issues tend to not be, shall we say, make a national headline half the time. But anyway, we're going off on a massive tangent now. Yeah, you are right, by the way. Germany does a fantastic. We're going off to another tangent here, but Germany does do a really good job of mixing, very much like a capitalist society. German unions are really, really strong, really, really strong in Germany, to a point where if you're every single, I think, CEO board or big board has to have like worker representation. That would be fantastic if we could have that in the UK, and I think that is German law. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember if it is or not, or whatever. But yes, anyway, back to this nonsense. Like I say, I'd much rather talk about that stuff. I'd much rather talk about getting people involved in politics. That's part of what I like to talk about on my channel very often. Getting involved in politics. When people like Galloway and Dore, they thrive on people who are, dissatisfied with their politics.
We're an oligarchy run by capitalists, and so if you see the United States in a war somewhere else, it's almost guaranteed we're there for capitalism. And exactly what's happening in Ukraine right now is about energy and hegemony and imperialism. And
okay, here we have the first part of this. Apparently, Ukraine is about energy. Again, the country they are being invaded by is very, very, very much energy independent. It is a massive oil and gas supplier. So, yeah, the idea that Russia is invading, Ukraine for energy, doesn't really make sense. Yeah, again, when you think about the whole idea of it's about energy, again, it doesn't really make sense when Russia is quite energy independent. But again, we're probably going to get into the fact that somehow NATO has forced Russia to invade the Ukraine for reasons. Again, like I say, get prepared for this. Yeah. It really is not about resources. It really is not about resources at all. Well, actually, it might be fresh water, which is technically, again, as we've said before, about Putin trying to secure the supply of fresh water into Crimea, which, again, Ukraine blocked them off from after the very, very dodgy independence vote. But there you go. So that is almost certainly one of the reasons why the conflict is happening. I've speculated about that before, but it is almost certainly not about resources. I think this is more about Russia once again trying to essentially have the last roll of the dice to try and prove that it is still some sort of superpower in an ever-changing world where you have the US, the rise now of China, and as well as now we are seeing the rise of the EU to take their seat, being the third potential superpower on the world stage.
And so you only get one side of the story told in American press, and now they're going to make it okay to censor us. By the way, Facebook just said it was okay to praise Nazis.
They did. They also.
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that. I have not heard that at all. Since when did Facebook make it okay to praise Nazis? Okay.
So said, and in fact, the man that signed the memo is literally a liberal Democrat. He was the leader of the Liberal Democrats in Britain. He was the deputy prime minister for a brief and inglorious period. He actually signed the memo that gave the permission to call for the death of people, Russians, for this limited period. Not a right that's been given to anybody in any other conflict, either one that's still running or has.
I'm confused about that. I haven't heard that before. Let's try and find this. Facebook. Still on you. Okay. Here we are. So, Facebook to allow for calls for violence against Putin. Okay. Facebook to allow calls for violence against Putin. Facebook allows war posts urging violence against Russian leader Vladimir Putin. So apparently that's not true. Then they've said that it's okay to say violence against Vladimir Putin, which I'm not overly truly fond of that themselves. But to be honest, this war is Putin's, and to be honest, well, it would be a sad day if, shall we say, he were to accidentally, brutally fall down the stairs. I think we'd all not shed a tear if that were to happen. But yeah, I'm okay, sort of. Again, I can't really understand it. I'm sort of okay with it, but the more I think about it, it's a bit. Yeah, and of course, given the situation it is, I think it's fine for them to allow that. I think if it wasn't, maybe it would be a bit sketchy. Maybe I'd sort of be certainly more against it. But given the fact of what's going on in Ukraine, I'm sort of okay with that. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is it, Shadow Man. 20 years ago, Galloway was right about the Iraq War, and he's pretty much dined out on that since then. He's completely 100% in the wrong about Ukraine, and anyone who says that Ukraine is like the Iraq War or whatever other situation people like to compare it to, it's like the Cuban Missile Crisis, etc., etc. No, this crisis and any other crisis are always different, always, every other time. Never, ever, ever let anyone get away with saying, "Oh, it's just like Iraq," or "Oh, it's just like this." No, any crisis, especially world crises, always have multiple different problems, multiple different reasons for them starting. They are never, ever exactly the same way. Yeah, Galloway has become a crap Batman villain. That's very true. That's very true.
Has run in the past. This is my point about the liberals. See, in the past, the big moguls that owned the TV stations and the newspapers, the liberals were on our side saying, hey, don't censor us. This is an abuse of your power. But now the liberals are doing it.
No, they're not. It's kind of funny. He says, oh, all these big people owning newspapers. You can chart this going all the way back, like newspaper ownership and then who owned newspapers. I mean, Napoleon, before he took power in his coup, owned a newspaper and used the influence that that newspaper gave him to spread his own propaganda. This isn't exactly a new thing. This has been going on for decades. You can go all the way back to like the Roman Republic with the triumvirate of the Caesar, Pompey, and Crassus. They used essentially town criers. They would pay people to go out in the streets to spread news, and of course, sprinkled in there would be their own news and decrees that they would sprinkle in there to spread the good word for them to get the populace to support them. So this isn't exactly a new thing. Powerful people have always used information. And by the way, to fight back against this, people have always risen up and created other forms to get information out and to get the word out about what's really going on. The truth always outs over this. Always the case. And in this case, Dore and Galloway here are just super annoyed that they're the only ones that actually, so we see, being left out of the anti-war Ukrainian stance, because to be anti-war, especially about Ukraine, pretty much means you're anti-Putin. Because the only way that you are anti-war and you're in this situation means being you're anti-Putin means that you essentially back Putin's accusations that this is NATO's fault, that he's trying to denazify Ukraine, that all the allegations against people in Donbass, the allegations that he's found chemical weapon productions facilities, you're essentially backing that. And Galloway, again, likes to say he likes to spread the truth, but he's not. Galloway, I probably highly suspect, gets a lot of money from Russian media moguls and gets a lot of money from RT. In fact, I don't know if it's true or not. Let me just check, because I'm sure Jimmy Dore may have taken money from Assad. Did Jimmy Dore take money from yes. Here we are. Here's a little tweet. A reminder that Jimmy Dore is the Alex Jones of the far left, who has been rewarded with money and recognition by a pro-Assad lobbying group for his whitewashing of Syria's murderous regime. Let me just show you. Let me just show you that. how convenient. how very, very convenient that Dore took money from the Assad regime to essentially whitewash all the stuff that Assad's regime has done. Whoops. Whoopsie doopsie. Oh dear. Anyway, let's go back to this. But oh my, yeah. Yeah. Is anyone really surprised? And that's another good point. Good point. Yeah. Galloway isn't supporting the anti-war protesters in Russia. I think Galloway is saying that those people are being taken in by American propaganda, or are being paid by CIA plants to stage these protests. Kind of convenient. Kind of convenient.
Well, it's great. Yeah, I agree. It's nuts. You thought authoritarianism would be always equated with the right, but there is no left. See, I've lived in America, but there really is no left in America, especially in government.
There is no left in America. People like Bernie Sanders and AOC just don't exist. They don't exist. They are just non-existent. That take is just so dumb. So dumb. I mean, how moronic do you have to be about that? They are very clearly on the left. But that's
It's two right-wing parties, and they both are beholden to the military-industrial complex, big pharma, and big tech. And so they've just farmed out censorship to private corporations. And so now if you say, hey, you're censoring me, they go, no, it's only censorship if the government does it. But I adhere to the principle that came out of the Enlightenment period. You're against censorship no matter where it comes from, whether it comes from the state, or it comes from the religion, or from a corporation. And so they've just farmed out censorship. And censorship.
What type of censorship, though? You two have massive followings. Like I said, this current video, this interview that we're watching here, there's 87,000 views. That's not exactly censorship. That's not exactly censorship. And as we said before, Jimmy has over 1 million subscribers. Again, he's not exactly censored. Again, it's the whole woe is me argument for being censored.
Has there ever been a problem that censorship ever fixed?
Well, no. And of course, self-censorship, what Francis Bacon called the arrow that flies in the night. Nobody ever sees it, but people bite their tongues or stub their finger just short of the keyboard. They don't write or ask questions for fear.
So now Galloway is accusing the media of being silent and voices for being silent about this. But silent about what exactly? Let's take, the Ukraine situation. Ukraine is being invaded by the actions of Vladimir Putin, basically being imperialist, basically saying, that's mine because I have essentially the biggest stick. And to be honest, Ukraine has done a damn good job of seeing him off so far. But sooner or later, Putin's just going to go, and just send the full whole kit and caboodle. As I've said before, I really do fear what could be unleashed in the next couple of weeks, especially if, should we say, Putin decides to start taking this seriously. And we've seen those narratives come out just this week of the chemical weapons which Assad used himself. Take the siege of Aleppo. The siege of Aleppo lasted 4 years. 14 days after Assad used the barrel bombs, the siege ended because he used chemical weapons. We are potentially seeing that in Ukraine, that these big cities are essentially going to become massive, well, grinder pits for the Russian troops. And Putin wants this war over as quickly as he possibly can. So chemical weapons would unfortunately be the very answer for that. We've seen at the moment, Assad is sending over 16,000 Syrian troops over to the Ukraine. Is Jimmy Dore or Galloway annoyed by the fact that Syria is helping these things? Jimmy Dore's certainly not going to do that after we've seen, he's been taking money from the Assad regime. So he's certainly not going to speak out against that. Is that not self-censorship that, as Sir Francis Bacon, the arrow that flies in the night? Is that not self-censorship, George and Jimmy?
Of the consequences for them. So self-censorship, big tech censorship, and state censorship, because no one can doubt that the state is driving the tech companies to do this. And as I've said, Nick Clegg, Sir Nick Clegg, if you don't mind, is himself a creature of government in Britain and the Facebook executive. So the point you've made too, you alluded to Iraq, and then you stated certain contentious positions that you had taken over the coronavirus, none of which are contentious anymore. So if I had said...
They aren't contentious. Jimmy is just wrong. And Jimmy Dore here does not like being called out about the fact that he was so wrong about all these dumb takes. And this is what you see a lot of these people on the right when they get challenged on their ideas or proven that they're wrong. They go, "Oh, woe is me, I'm being censored." No, you're not being censored. You're just being challenged for your ideas. Just they're dumb. You've given a dumb take. You've given a bad take. You're putting out wrong information. And bear in mind, the right, a couple of years ago, was very, very, come debaters, come challengers to debates. We're all about the free marketplace of ideas. Come and debate us. And what happened was, again, the left was very, very hesitant to debate these people. But when those debates started happening, all of a sudden, the right started backpedaling. The right started backpedaling hard. And then whenever they got challenged or criticized, it just became, "I'm being censored." Or that just became the excuse that we're seeing now, or at least Galloway setting up Dore for to say.
In 2003 on Facebook, there are no weapons of mass destruction, and this entire thing is a hoax. I would have been taken down and stopped from saying it.
No, Galloway was never, ever stopped for that. In fact, Galloway has done that several times since he gained access to not only Facebook and Twitter. Like I say, George Galloway dines out on the constant fact that he was right about Iraq. congratulations, George, but what have you been right about since?
The questions that you raised about the efficacy of things like masks and so on are now commonplace. It's perfectly obvious. You've got politicians in one picture. Let me give you an example. Trudeau was meeting the British Prime Minister in a mask, and in another picture, he was meeting the 96-year-old Queen of England who just had COVID without a mask. And he was hovering like he was about to plant a kiss on the end of her nose. That's how close he was to it. This whole absurdity is now a joke.
You don't know what happened behind the scenes for that. Trudeau might have taken a test and said, yeah, I'm COVID-free. And he might have asked the Queen, are you all right if I don't wear a mask? She might have said, yes, that's fine. You don't know. But again, to Galloway and others, this is just absurdity. You know, wearing a mask. Oh my God, it's a mask. Get over yourselves. It's just a mask. It is not the imposition of freedom. It is not, you know, we're not, you know, sending people to the gulags for not wearing a mask. It's just basic public health protocol that has existed for hundreds of thousands of years. And next time George Galloway goes in for surgery, do you think he's going to ask his doctors not to wear a mask? You know, when they're standing over him, you know, cutting open, leaning over him like that. Do you think they shouldn't wear a mask? Again, these are just fanciful stories that these people love to make up because they've found whole new audiences that are ready to gobble up all that, anti-COVID propaganda stuff. That's why Dore and Galloway have both leaned really heavy into the stuff. Same for Russell Brand as well.
Joke. And if you can't lampoon it, then to what extent are we a free country?
So we're not a free. Well, I don't know about your country, but I know my country, we only have as much freedom as the corporation will allow you. I mean, we only have 6 huge corporations that control all of our media, and they're all funded by the people they're supposed to be investigating and exposing. And that's why a schmuck like me, a nightclub comedian, can come into their space and do a better job. Right now, if you're...
Why are you complaining about being censored then? If you're saying you're doing a better job, remember, this guy a few moments right at the beginning of this interview said he wasn't a journalist, he's just a comedian. But apparently he's doing better than journalists. But he's also complaining about being censored. None of that makes sense.
Getting the news in the United States from the corporate news, which is where everybody gets it, almost, then you're being misinformed. You don't know anything about what's happening in Ukraine, really. You think that Vladimir Putin just decided to flip out for no reason and start bombing people. You don't know that we helped institute a coup, a pro-West coup in Ukraine. And
No, we did not. The US did not institute a coup in Ukraine. If you happen to have a Netflix account, I highly, highly recommend the documentary Winter on Fire, Ukraine's Fight for Freedom, all about the Euromaidan protests. It is a fantastic documentary, and you will see why that happened. The Ukrainian people were being repressed by a guy who was about to pass some incredibly harsh, very restrictive laws against them. He had decided, after saying that he was going to sign, the the EU trade agreement, decided, no, I'm not going to sign it anymore. I'm going to sign one with Russia, one that would have tied Ukraine economically at the hip to Russia, one of which they would not have been able to get out of. So definitely, please do go check out that. It's on Netflix. It's called Winter on Fire. And I see Shadow Man, yes. Like I say, do go watch it. It's very good. Again, this whole idea that we fomented a coup. Again, no, we didn't. Well, we didn't. The US didn't. That's just Russian propaganda they're using to try and justify their war. Oh, you interfered in Ukraine. Well, now we're going to have to go in and change stuff. By the way, very recently, updates. I don't know if you've seen, there was a mayor who got kidnapped by the Russian army. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been an update on where he is or if he's even still safe. And the person who replaced him wasn't the deputy mayor, wasn't an elected member of the government. It was somebody who was a mayor on the Russian side of things, and has come in and started saying, you know, people of the town, you must obey the Russians, which bodes very, very badly. And what I'm really worrying about is how much territory is Vladimir Putin really going to actually take from Ukraine.
8 years ago, we brought in, and then there's a bunch of people in that country who didn't want to live under a coup, and they didn't want to go along.
It wasn't a coup. And these people who just suddenly didn't want to live under this under this government, those people were backed by Russian, backed by Russia, backed by the Kremlin, backed by Putin, with fighters not even from that region, from the Wagner Group and other mercenaries and little green men, with real Russian military troops who just went, you know, took off their uniform and then went to fight in the Donbass region. By the way, we've had that confirmed very recently in Chinese state television, of all things. In all things, it was Chinese state television. There was an interviewer, I believe it's like Phoenix Television, and he's the only journalist who is on like the Russian side, and he's interviewing one of these, again, a Russian soldier. He's interviewing I want to make this clear, a Russian soldier, and he goes, and he's talking, and then the Russian soldier just comes out with, "I've been fighting for 8 years in Donbass. You know, I'm quote ready to finish this war." That's an admission from a Russian soldier, something which the Putin and the Kremlin have constantly denied. Dore and Galloway constantly deny that Russia's never funded any of these separatist movements. You know, this would be like if, imagine if the Republic of Ireland started funding, you know, the IRA in Northern Ireland, and then decided to go on and deny that they were funding the IRA. You know, it's a situation that the British government would not be very happy with. And it was a very similar situation for the Ukrainian government. They were not very happy that Russia and the Kremlin were funding and arming these separatist movements. Oh, is it? Is that true? So if that is true, that's absolutely fantastic. So you don't need a Netflix account. Go watch Winter on Fire if it's on YouTube. Definitely go watch it. It's a very good documentary. Will give you a lot of information, especially about the 2014 protest, which led to the ousting of the president. By the way, he wasn't ousted in a coup. He was voted out. Even his own party wanted him out. And there's a very infamous clip you can see of when he loses the vote. He like snaps a fountain pen. And if you've ever had a fountain pen, you know how like thick a fountain pen is. But he just snaps the fountain pen clearly in two. You know, he was not a happy bunny when he lost that vote. And yeah, and I want to make that. I did say vote, so it wasn't a coup. He got voted out. They then had an election not too long ago where Zelensky got voted in. Shock horror. A vote. I thought this was a Nazi dictatorship, but no, it's nothing of the sort.
Along with that. And so what did the Ukrainians do? They got Nazis to start bombing the Donbass, and they wouldn't stop for 8 years, even though there's an agreement that said they would. And so this is, no one's justifying war. I'm anti-war no matter where it comes from, and I condemn Putin for invading. But this was predicted that was going to happen for 20 years because of NATO encroachment. This wasn't predicted.
No, it wasn't predicted for 20 years. It was not predicted for 20 years. Again, he's going to go on the whole NATO encroachment article, or the NATO encroachment angle. All these countries joined NATO for a reason. They were not forced into joining NATO. They all wanted to join NATO. This whole Ukraine situation has even made it so that Finland, a country prior, which was very, very against joining, NATO for years, for decades, in literally a matter of weeks, over half the population of Finland now want to join NATO. That's quite a reversal. And remember, if Putin doesn't want to, quote, have NATO expand, he has just justified so many more countries joining NATO. And bear in mind, the Ukraine was never going to join NATO, because countries that have what's the term now? A disputed border with another country. That's it. If you've got a disputed border with another country, which Ukraine does with Moldova, with a part called Transnistria, also known as the Transnistria Republic, that is stopping them from joining NATO. Ukraine was never going to join NATO. Even France and Germany, about 10 years ago, had also said, no, we don't want Ukraine in yet. So this doesn't make any sense. Remember, if you're Putin, think about this for a second. If you're Putin and you do not want NATO to grow stronger or come closer to your borders, doing this has just achieved the exact opposite. So, again, the whole NATO thing is just a convenient excuse used by Putin, and unfortunately used by idiots, in this case Dore and Galloway here, to say, oh, NATO's bad.
Predicted by me. It was predicted by former ambassadors to the UN, or former people who worked for the State Department. It was predicted by all the scholars who looked into this. So this was, this isn't, but it's being reported in the United States as if this is all new and it came out of nowhere, and that we're at the...
It was all new. Ukraine, until very, very recently, always had, very much like Finland and Sweden, were not going to join NATO. But over time, they have come under incredibly more increased Russian pressure in the form of military aggression. And they became increasingly worried that they were going to get invaded. And it happened. You know, it happened over this. This is what happened. And remember, this is being used as a justification. You know, it's just being used as a justification for this war. Oh, where it's like, you know, the denazification. You look at Putin's demands to Zelensky. He's sure not demanding the denazification. He's demanding land at the moment. Who knows what other crazy things he could ask in the coming weeks? But we'll have to see how the negotiations go.
The threat of nuclear war because Putin didn't take his antidepressant medicine or something, and that's of course, every time the United States. By the way, right now the United States is occupying 1/3 of Syria, and no one even mentions that.
And our bombs are raining down on Yemen, the poorest country in the Middle East.
Right.
Oh, what aboutism? What aboutism? What aboutism, George and Jimmy? What aboutism? That's all it is. Just what aboutism? Again, it's fine if you want to criticize that, but don't just say or use that as a get out of jail free card. I've said if I actually phoned in to like George Galloway's show, which is coincidentally live right now, if I were to actually phone in, this is what Galloway would do. He would go, oh, what about Yemen? What about this? What about Syria? That would be his get out card. That's what he would do. He would go, well, what about this? What about that? And you just have to go, George, we're not talking. We ain't talking about Syria or etc. I probably agree with whatever you may have to say, but we're talking about Ukraine right now. That is what you have to do. You have to pull them back onto that topic. That's what any conversation I may one day have with George Galloway. That's what you'd have to do. You'd have to keep on pulling him back onto talking about Ukraine, not Syria, Iraq, or whatever topic he just wants to talk about, because he has sort of no answer to your question.
So we're not going to get our oil from Russia. We're going to get it from Saudi Arabia, so we could feel good about ourselves and sleep at night. Saudi Arabia is committing a genocide right now in Yemen, and with our help.
And chopped the heads off 81 people in one day yesterday.
Oh, no kidding. Wow. Well, it's always a party.
81 beheadings in a...
Yeah, again, we get it. Saudi Arabia bad. But as again, as Shadow Man here just pointed out, doesn't make them the good guys. Doesn't make them the good guys. You know, it doesn't make them the good guys. You know, it's complete argument deflecting. And like I say, if you ever get into a conversation with anyone else who does this, you literally just have to say, we're not talking about Yemen or wherever they just happen to be picking about. Yeah, you know, I agree with you. That's, you know, the situation of there is probably bad, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the situation in Ukraine. That's what you'd have to do. You'd literally just have to pull them back onto the topic of conversation all the time, because they don't have an answer for your question. That's why they go, oh, but what about this? What about that? No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Ukraine. So again, anything that they have to say, yes, bad. It's bad about that they did that. It's bad about, obviously, you know, Saudi Arabia. But we're not talking about Saudi Arabia at the moment. We're talking about Ukraine. Oh yeah, that's very true as well. Jimmy Dore thinks the Proud Boys are good guys. Remember that. Indeed, that's very true.
A single day. Even ISIS never reached these kind of levels. So we're begging. You know, Biden said that he regarded MBS, the Crown Prince, as a pariah, and he was going to reset America's relations with Saudi Arabia. Now he's begging him to take a phone call to up the output of the oil industry. Just in the time left available, Jimmy, I wanted to touch on something you again alluded to there, and that's the rewriting of history. Mad for short, on whatever station she's on, Rachel Mad, on the television yesterday, and a guy called McFall, former U.S. ambassador to Moscow. He said, and then they tweeted, without attributing it to him, so coming from them, that Hitler never used chemical weapons, when in fact he industrially annihilated millions of Jews and millions of others in literal gas chambers.
Well, again, depends on your definition of weapon. Yes, Hitler did use, obviously, what was it now? Zyklon B in the gas chambers, but he didn't actually deploy chemical weapons. As far as I'm aware, Hitler didn't actually ever physically deploy chemical weapons. Now, both we and Germany in World War One and France deployed chemical weapons numerous times in World War One, but you know, again, technically, if you want to get technical, Hitler didn't deploy chemical weapons. Yes, he did use, obviously, you know, then the Holocaust. But didn't really deploy chemical weapons. Again, this is the classic whataboutism again. It's as I've just been saying, you can just drag the conversation away from something onto something else completely different. Yeah, Galloway is technically correct here, but only technically. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah. Does Galloway actually want the situation in Ghana, in Gaza, Kashmir, and Yemen to improve? I doubt it, as he uses these crises in a very crude attempt to get, quote, Muslim votes in the UK by-elections. And yet we have actually seen that, especially when the Battling Spen election very, very recently. He used all those situations, as you are right, in a very, very crude manner, to try and essentially garner votes from the local Muslim population. I do agree with you. I do very much in doubt he actually really cares about the situations in Ghana, in Gaza, Kashmir, and Yemen. I very much doubt that he does actually care. But you are right there. I very much doubt he does care about the people in those areas.
How's that for rewriting history?
So they've stooped to manufacture consent for this war in Ukraine that's raising everybody's gas prices, and they're pretending that we're paying higher gas prices for freedom and liberty. So to stoop to manufacture consent in the United States for that, they've stooped now at MSNBC and Rachel Maddow on her show to praising Hitler. That's what they're doing. They're praising Hitler.
I don't really think they praised Hitler from what Galloway put it. Again, that's, by the way, a very good propaganda piece George has done there in an interview. He's called what we call the setup. He set Jimmy Dore up there to essentially bash another news channel, another presenter on mainstream media. Just go, oh, look at how bad this comment was. Right, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then Jimmy Dore obviously gets to say, oh, well, they're praising Hitler. When really, when you look at the comments, and as we said there, technically, you know, Hitler, quote, didn't deploy chemical weapons, but again, depends on the definition of weapon. But yes, he did use, obviously, the chemicals in the Holocaust. So, but again, depends on your, definition of weapon there, I suppose.
But I used to do a joke about that, no matter anybody who tells me I'm funny, I have a soft spot for him. Even if Hitler said, "Hey, Jimmy, I saw your show last night. It was very funny," I would be like, there's another side to that guy that people really never saw.
And that's what they did. Yeah, that's what
they did a literal joke. They did it.
And they weren't joking.
What? What can you say about that? What can you really say about that, considering what they've just condemned another show for doing? It's whataboutery to its finest.
Speaking of jokes, how do you avoid lampooning a guy wandering around in his pajamas in the White House? Not safe with the button on his dressing gown. Never mind the nuclear button. How do you not lampoon that?
If they can make you, this is the power of propaganda. If they can make you think of Nobel Prize winning human medicine as horse poison, they can make you think the president of the United States is not demented. I mean, the guy gets stuck in a couch 3 times a day. I mean, come on, you're right. How do you not? I mean, he can't speak. Everybody knows it. It's like we're all in like this mass hypnosis. We're all pretending the president of the United States is of sound mind and body, and he's not. He's been AWOL for a long time.
Yeah, ask the Pope about the famous toilet incident in the Vatican. Jimmy Dore, you're a superstar, and I'm really grateful to you for making.
And that's the end of the interview. But yeah, wow. Whoo. So that's the end of the interview, and oh my word, Michael Bresson, 2 creepy old men, yeah. Oh dear. Oh dear me. Yeah. Yeah. 2 very, very creepy old men indeed. So yeah, that's essentially what that was. It was someone's beating me to it. Pretty birdie beat me to it. It was pretty much a circle jerk of you scratch my grift, I'll scratch yours type of situation. And Galloway here is, again, he's not doing himself any favors here at all. He's not doing himself any favors here. And of course, as we've said before, throughout all this Ukraine situation, we've been on constantly. I had leftists come on, all people in the chat going, "Oh no, you don't understand. It's Ukraine that's in the wrong here. Russia's in the right. It's about NATO. It's about all this other stuff." But again, you can debunk the NATO fact easily. Think about the fact again, as we said, if you're Vladimir Putin, why would you invade Ukraine when Ukraine wants to join NATO because it's terrified of the exact thing that you've just done to them? Not only that, you've also heavily encouraged other countries to think, maybe we should be in NATO as well. Not really good, to be honest. And again, NATO is overwhelmingly a defensive alliance. Even now, NATO is terrified to actually go in and get involved in this conflict. Zelensky today has just asked the US Congress again for a no-fly zone. And I understand why he wants one, but let's face it, given the fact that we've seen so much ill discipline from the Russian army, you could not trust that a Russian commander or whoever may not end up shooting down a NATO jet, and thus again kickstarting World War III. That's what's going to happen. And what do you do? Galloway is just flat out wrong. Jimmy Dore's flat out wrong in this, and there's so many leftists who don't. It's not that they hate NATO; it's that they think NATO is just American, and because they're on the left, they've got to be anti-NATO, and they don't realize that as they're chanting "Boo NATO, Boo NATO," there's a guy next to them who's Vladimir Putin, who's also going "Boo NATO, Boo NATO." And that's how they've ended up aligning themselves. But of course, let's not kid ourselves. Galloway was always going to align himself with Russia. Like I say, going all the way back to the time where he was an MP. He was the most paid MP by Russia today. I highly suspect if you looked into his accounts, he would probably also be one of the highest paid former MPs by Russia today as well. Like I say, it's all in his expense reports that are, again, public record. So, again, not surprising of this, of course. So, yeah, what do you say about this? Well, you do what we've just done today. Just show how wrong and how foolish these people are. Jimmy Dore's a complete idiot. Michael Galloway, George Galloway here is a complete idiot. And they deserve to be called so. And I do hope their fans do find this and start asking questions about why they are sort of taking these situations. Maybe asking questions about why Jimmy Dore took money from the Assad regime and has whitewashed the things the Assad regime has done in Syria. And same for, I believe, George Galloway has also probably taken. I wouldn't be surprised if we find that now. Oh, yeah, one of the first things. What happened to George Galloway? George Galloway. Yeah, money. Oh, this is interesting. This comes back from 2012. This goes all the way back to 2012. Ooh, who would believe this? This comes from the Scotsman newspaper. George Galloway paid 80 grand a year by TV station with alleged ties to Syria and Iran. Again, this is an old one. So this goes back to like 2012. Of course, this is when he was still MP for Bradford West. So Bradford West MP presents a fortnightly show, A Free Word, on the recently established station, which is a rival to Al Jazeera. He's reported to earn at least £3,000 per every episode. Al Madeen has refused to make public its financial backers, but has denied that it is supported by Iran and a cousin of Syria's president, Bashar al-Assad. It has also been claimed that Madeen's head of news is married to the former aide of Assad, and that the station's manager is a former head of Al-Merina, the station linked to Hezbollah. Well, strange. Isn't it always strange? All these people. Isn't it strange? All these people have links to these things. It's so bizarre. I can't help but think why. You know. Oh. So yeah. What can we say? Surprise, surprise! They've both taken money from the Assad regime. What a surprise! You shouldn't be at all. But then again, I suppose they've also got again nothing to say about again as we've seen very recently about 16,000 again troops sent by Assad to Ukraine, primarily for the fact that the Russians can use them as pretty much as cannon fodder. Especially as the Syrians currently have a lot, and I mean a lot, of close combat urban city fighting, because that's what they've been doing for, well, the past number of years. So is it any wonder why they're bringing them in? And of course, they have a awful, awful human rights record. So if we do start to see video of them in there, we can only imagine what potentially they might do. We've seen a lot of peaceful protesters go up to, again, Russian soldiers and start demonstrating. If those were, shall we say, the Syrian mercenaries that Putin is now getting involved, I certainly do worry for the people of Ukraine. Certainly, if they are bringing these foreign potential mercenaries around this. So I do hope, like many people, this war does end sooner rather than later, because obviously the longer it goes on, the more people in Ukraine are going to suffer. But at the same time, Ukraine should not have to bow to essentially a foreign military power to essentially dictating to them to get what they want through essential pure military aggression. That is not how the world should work. That is not how we want a world that we want to live in. That's not how it should work. You know, it worked like that in the past. If you were a king and you wanted a part of a new territory, you'd send your army in to go and do it. You know, might makes right. That is not how the world should indeed be run in this day and age. We've got far, far better systems to run that. And shockingly enough, even though these guys will say themselves, "Oh, we're anti-war, we condemn what Putin is doing," but for some reason you are unanimously in favor of supporting Putin and what he's doing. Kind of strange. Kind of strange, that, guys. Very strange. So, as always, thank you very much, everyone, for joining and tuning in this evening. It's been very fun. I'll just say fun in the loosest term possible. But like I say, I hope you've enjoyed yourselves. Like I say, please do remember to hit that like and share button on your way out. It does help out the channel massively. And of course, if you'd like to support the channel a different way, there are obviously links down below to my Patreon page. There's a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can buy me coffee. And of course, there's the YouTube memberships open as well. If you want to support me that way. Like I say, thank you very much to everyone, like I say, for coming along and joining us this evening. Hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. The Good Morning Walk on Saturday. Probably not going to be in Yorkshire, potentially. We might be in the Lake District. So signal strength may vary. could be quite interesting, but at least, you know, new location, new things to see. So it might be quite fun for you to come join us. Like I say, maybe about 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, GMT time, as always. We'll try and have it. So we'll see you there. If not, we've got other videos coming out this week as well, so watch out for those. And as always, we will see you all next time. Well, actually, there may be ponies. We just don't know. I don't know what we're going to get when we're out there in the lake. So, but needless to say, it'll be quite fun. And as always, very, very interesting. So, as always, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Do hope you've enjoyed yourselves. But as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you all next time.